Ambassador Jack Reynolds tugged at his collar for the 14th time in as many minutes. The climate control in the Galactic Council chamber was calibrated for the comfort of 17 different species, none of which happened to be human. The result was a swampy, overheated mess that made his formal diplomatic attire cling to him like a nervous octopus. "You could remove the jacket, sir," whispered Luna, his AI assistant. Her holographic form flickered beside him, a shimmering blue silhouette that thankfully took up no physical space in the crowded chamber. "And look underdressed compared to Ambassador Gloop over there." "No thanks," Jack muttered, nodding toward the Merovian representative who was essentially wearing what appeared to be a chandelier. First impressions matter. Jack's appointment as Earth's first diplomatic representative to the Galactic Council had been met with a mix of celebration and panic back home. Celebration because humanity had finally been invited to join the interstellar community after centuries of being ignored. Panic because, well, Jack Reynolds had been selected. Not that Jack wasn't qualified. He had 3 PhDs, spoke 14 languages, 5 of them alien, and had negotiated peace treaties in some of Earth's most volatile regions. But he also had what his superiors delicately called a refreshing lack of filter when provoked. The council chamber itself was a monument to excess, a vast circular room with a domed ceiling displaying a real-time map of the galaxy. Representatives from 32 spacefaring civilizations sat at curved desks arranged in concentric rings, the position of each determined by their species' age of interstellar travel. Earth, being the newcomer, was positioned in the outermost ring, practically in the hallway. "Council is now in session," announced High Counselor Thune, a 12-foot-tall insectoid, whose mandibles clicked rhythmically between words. "We welcome Ambassador Reynolds of Earth, who joins us for his first full session." A murmur rippled through the chamber as all eyes, stalks and sensory organs turned toward Jack. He stood and gave a perfect council bow, 30 degrees, palms displayed, eyes lowered. "Earth is honored to join this esteemed body," Jack said, reciting the traditional greeting he'd spent 3 days memorizing. "We hope to learn from your wisdom and contribute to galactic harmony." "So polite," whispered a gelatinous being to Jack's left. "Humans always are," replied its neighbor, a creature that resembled a sentient cactus. "Unnervingly so. I heard they apologize even when others bump into them." "Fascinating primitive behavior," agreed the gelatinous being. Jack maintained his diplomatic smile, despite hearing every word. Enhanced hearing implants were supposed to be his secret advantage, but the alien's dismissive tone made his jaw clench slightly. Luna noticed and gave him a subtle warning glance. High Counselor Thune's mandibles clicked approvingly. "Earth's addition brings our council to 33 member species, a most auspicious number in galactic standard mathematics. Let us proceed with today's agenda." Jack sat down, forcing his shoulders to relax. This was what he'd trained for, to represent humanity with dignity and respect. To be the polite, measured face of Earth while navigating the complex politics of a galaxy that had until recently considered humans barely more civilized than their house pets. Luna's holographic hand passed through his arm in an attempt at a reassuring pat. "Remember the briefing, sir. The Galactic Council respects decorum above all else." "I know," Jack whispered back, polite mode fully engaged. He had no idea how thoroughly that commitment would be tested before the day was through. The first hour of the council meeting passed in a blur of procedural votes and minor trade agreements. Jack found himself fighting to stay alert as representatives debated the tariff rates on Jovian moon cheese and the proper classification of sentient fungal colonies. "Is it always this riveting?" Jack whispered to Luna. "Actually, sir, this is what they call the exciting part," Luna replied, her holographic eyes scanning through the meeting agenda. "The mineral rights disputes don't start until after lunch." Jack stifled a groan. Humanity had spent centuries dreaming of alien life, only to discover that interstellar politics was just as mind-numbingly bureaucratic as its terrestrial counterpart. "Next item," announced High Counselor Thune, mandibles clicking with what might have been excitement. "The disputed star system in Sector 7G. The Vexarians and the Krill have both submitted claims." This caught Jack's attention. Territorial disputes were exactly the kind of thing Earth needed to understand. Humanity's small fleet of exploration vessels was already mapping potential expansion routes, and avoiding contested space was priority number 1. A tall, slender alien, with iridescent scales and an unnecessarily elaborate headdress rose from the inner ring. Ambassador Klaxx of the Vexarian Imperium was renowned for his species' aggressive expansion policies and his personal collection of rare artifacts, many suspiciously acquired from planets that had voluntarily joined the Imperium. The Vexarian claim is beyond dispute, Klaxx announced, his voice carrying a harmonic overtone that made Jack's teeth itch. Our survey vessels charted the system 3 cycles ago. The Krill arrived later, as they always do, attempting to scavenge our discovery. The Krill ambassador, a being who resembled a cross between a jellyfish and a computer server rack, flashed a series of indignant lights. Vexarian survey vessels were in the neighboring system. They have retroactively extended their claim using falsified data. The council chamber erupted into murmurs and clicks as representatives took sides. Jack leaned forward, fascinated by the diplomatic dance unfolding before him. Then Klaxx made a move that silenced the room. Since we are discussing territorial claims, the Vexarian ambassador said, his scales shifting to a smug purple hue, the Imperium would like to formally register its historical claim to the system containing the third planet from the star humans call Sol. Jack blinked twice, certain he'd misheard. Luna's hologram flickered in alarm. Ambassador Klaxx, she whispered, appears to be claiming Earth's solar system. Jack's hand gripped the edge of his desk. I noticed that, Luna, he replied through clenched teeth. High Counselor Thune's compound eyes swiveled toward Jack. The Council recognizes Earth's representative. Jack stood, careful to maintain his composure. Thank you, High Counselor. I'm afraid I must have misunderstood Ambassador Klaxx's statement. It sounded as though he was claiming ownership of Earth's home system, which has been continuously inhabited by humans for our entire evolutionary history. Klaxx's scales rippled in what looked suspiciously like amusement. I understand the humans' confusion. Your species has only recently achieved rudimentary space travel. You wouldn't be aware that Vexarian explorers charted your system some 12,000 years ago, long before humans had even invented the wheel. I see, Jack said, his voice neutral despite the warning bells going off in his head. And may I ask where this claim has been registered prior to today? Our archaeologists have found no evidence of Vexarian presence in our system. Of course you haven't, Klaxx replied with a dismissive wave of his 7-fingered hand. Your species was too primitive to recognize advanced technology. The claim was registered in the Imperial Archives, which predates this council by several millennia. Jack took a deep breath. With all due respect, Ambassador, a unilateral claim registered only in your own archives, with no evidence of actual settlement or continuous presence, seems rather convenient. The chamber grew quiet. Jack could feel dozens of alien gazes upon him, watching how Earth's representative would handle this blatant provocation. The human shows remarkable restraint, whispered a nearby council member. Indeed, their polite mode is impressive, agreed another. I expected shouting by now. Luna's hologram appeared near Jack's ear. Sir, I'm detecting elevated heart rate and blood pressure. Remember the diplomatic protocols. Jack nodded almost imperceptibly. Polite mode still engaged, he whispered back. But someone should tell Klaxx that he's pushing his luck. Little did the council know that luck was about to run out. High Counselor Thune sensed the rising tension and intervened with a diplomatic click of his mandibles. Perhaps we should table this unexpected claim for a future session, allowing time for both parties to present evidence. I object, Klaxx said, his scales shifting to a challenging orange. The human system contains valuable resources that the Vexarian Imperium has historical rights to. Their occupation is merely temporary. Jack felt a muscle twitch beneath his left eye. Luna's hologram expanded slightly, positioning herself between Jack and Klaxx as if she could physically prevent what her sensors told her was coming. Ambassador Reynolds, called a melodic voice from the second ring. It belonged to Mira Tizen of the Aldebaranian Conclave, one of the oldest and most respected council members. How does Earth respond to this claim? All eyes in the chamber turned back to Jack. He straightened his shoulders, remembering the countless briefings on first contact protocols and diplomatic restraint. Earth acknowledges that many species explored the galaxy before humanity achieved spaceflight. Jack began carefully, however, claiming ownership of an inhabited world based on alleged surveys from 12 millennia ago, without evidence of settlement or continuous presence, violates Council Statute 342b, regarding indigenous species rights. A murmur of approval rippled through the chamber. Jack had done his homework. The human knows our laws, whispered a council member that resembled a sentient cloud of gas. Impressive for a newcomer. Klaxx's headdress quivered in what Jack was beginning to recognize as irritation. The Vexarian Imperium does not recognize that particular statute when it conflicts with prior claims. As for evidence, perhaps the human would like to explain the ancient structures on their moon. Jack blinked. The lunar bases, those are human constructions from the 21st century. I refer to the older structures, Klaxx replied smugly. The ones your primitive scanning technology hasn't detected beneath the surface of your satellite. Luna's hologram flickered as she processed this information. Sir, she whispered, I'm accessing Earth's deep space monitoring network. There are no verified reports of alien structures on the moon. I know that, Jack muttered back. He's bluffing. Klaxx continued, his voice carrying throughout the chamber. The human species has only achieved what might generously be called technology in the last few centuries. Your understanding of quantum mechanics is rudimentary at best. Your spacecraft are laughably primitive. You've barely managed to establish outposts on neighboring planets in your own system. Jack took another deep breath. While humanity may be new to interstellar politics, Ambassador Klaxx, we have made remarkable progress in a short time. We value cooperation over conquest and have peacefully unified our planet before reaching for the stars. Peaceful? Klaxx's scales rippled with what could only be described as alien laughter. Your species has spent most of its history engaged in tribal warfare. Your unification came after you nearly destroyed yourselves multiple times. The Council admitted Earth as a curiosity, not as an equal. The chamber grew uncomfortably quiet. Several council members shifted in their seats, unwilling to contradict Klaxx but clearly uncomfortable with his flagrant disrespect. Luna's hologram displayed warning symbols only Jack could see. Sir, your cortisol levels are spiking. May I suggest a diplomatic platitude? Jack ignored her. Ambassador Klaxx seems remarkably well versed in human history for someone whose species allegedly hasn't visited Earth since before we invented agriculture. Perhaps the Vexarians have been studying us more recently than they claim. It was a pointed accusation. Unauthorized surveillance of pre-FTL species was a serious violation of Council law. A few gasps echoed through the chamber. Klaxx's scales darkened. The Imperium has monitored your broadcasts, as is permitted. Your species broadcasts your violent tendencies and technological inferiority across the electromagnetic spectrum for all to witness. Then you'll know we're rather protective of our home. Jack replied, his voice dropping slightly. Is that a threat, human? Klaxx's head tilted. You possess a single defense fleet with outdated shield technology and energy weapons that my personal yacht could outmatch. Your species' only remarkable trait is your unwarranted confidence. Luna's hologram was now frantically displaying warning symbols. Sir, please remember the diplomatic briefing. Earth cannot afford an interstellar incident on your first council session. Jack nodded slightly, his jaw tight. I appreciate your concern for Earth's defensive capabilities, Ambassador Klaxx. Perhaps at a future session, we could discuss technology exchange programs that would benefit both our worlds. The diplomatic pivot caught many council members by surprise. A few nodded approvingly. Always so polite, murmured the cactus-like being. Even when insulted directly. Remarkable restraint, agreed its gelatinous neighbor. Though I detect strain in the human's vocal patterns. What they couldn't see was Jack's hand beneath the desk, clenched so tightly that his knuckles had turned white. Luna could, however, and her monitoring systems were registering alarming biometric readings. Sir, she whispered urgently. Your blood pressure. I'm fine, Luna, Jack whispered back through a forced smile, just keeping the polite mode engaged. For now, but Ambassador Klaxx wasn't finished yet. High Counselor Thune attempted once more to restore order. This council session was not scheduled to address territorial claims regarding Earth's system. We should proceed to one final point. Klaxx interrupted, a breach of protocol that caused Thune's mandibles to click in agitation. Since the humans seem so concerned with evidence, perhaps we should discuss the real reason the Vexarian Imperium has a valid claim to the Sol system. Jack's expression remained neutral, but Luna's sensors detected his pulse quickening. The archive records clearly show, Klaxx continued, his voice dripping with condescension, that Vexarian geneticists visited primitive Earth as part of a galaxy-wide research initiative. Your species' evolutionary jump from simple primates to tool users was not natural. You were an experiment, one that we apparently abandoned when the results proved disappointing. A collective gasp echoed through the council chamber. Even by the loose standards of interstellar diplomacy, suggesting that another species was an abandoned science project crossed several lines. Luna's hologram flickered intensely. Sir, please remember the Earth Diplomatic Corps' primary directive: no interstellar incidents during the probationary period. Jack didn't respond. He sat perfectly still, his expression unreadable. The human appears to be processing this information, whispered the cactus being. Their polite mode must have impressive buffers. Indeed, agreed the gelatinous alien. Such restraint, I expected a primate response by now. Klaxx, interpreting Jack's silence as confusion, pressed his advantage. Your species' history is nothing more than a series of violent failures, building increasingly efficient tools for killing each other. You've poisoned your own atmosphere, driven countless native species to extinction, and nearly annihilated yourselves multiple times. You're not pioneers, you're participants in an experiment that yielded statistically uninteresting results. The chamber fell silent as all eyes turned to Jack. Even High Counselor Thune seemed uncertain how to proceed in the face of such a blatant insult. Finally, Jack stood, slowly, deliberately. He straightened his diplomatic jacket, adjusted his cuffs, and then looked directly at Klaxx. Luna, he said, his voice eerily calm. Yes, Ambassador. The AI's hologram appeared beside him, her expression concerned. Make a note in the official Earth record. Jack cleared his throat. As of Galactic Standard Time, 3426.7, I am officially disengaging polite diplomatic mode. Luna's hologram visibly flinched. Sir, I strongly advise against. Note the time, Luna. Noted, sir. Her hologram dimmed slightly as if in resignation. A confused murmur spread through the council chamber. Several representatives leaned forward, translator devices struggling to process the idiom. What does the human mean by disengaging polite mode? Asked the gelatinous being. The cactus alien's spines rippled with uncertainty. Perhaps it's a ritual phrase. A human diplomatic custom. Ambassador Klaxx's scales shifted to a dismissive blue. Is this another example of primitive human behavior? Are we supposed to be impressed by "Shut up, Klaxx," Jack said. The chamber went dead silent. Even the environmental systems seemed to pause. I beg your pardon. Klaxx's scales flashed in shock. You heard me. Jack's voice had transformed. Gone was the measured diplomat, replaced by something harder, sharper. For the last hour I've listened to you spew absolute garbage about my planet and my species. I've smiled and nodded and quoted regulations because that's what diplomats do. But since you insist on behaving like an overgrown lizard with delusions of grandeur, allow me to respond in kind. Jack stepped away from his desk, walking slowly toward the center of the chamber. Luna's hologram followed, projecting warning symbols that Jack completely ignored. First, let's address your so-called claim to the Sol system. Not only is it complete bullshit, but if the Vexarians had actually visited Earth 12,000 years ago, you would have found evidence of previous advanced civilizations that predate your alleged visit by at least 30,000 years. Previous civilizations? Klaxx sputtered. Your archaeological record shows no such. Because they weren't human civilizations. Jack cut him off. Earth has been a cosmic crossroads long before either of our species evolved. The difference is, humans respect the evidence and don't make up fairy tales about genetic experiments just to justify a resource grab. The council members exchanged stunned glances. No one had ever seen a human behave this way. It was like watching a different species emerge. As for our primitive technology, Jack continued, his voice rising slightly, you might be interested to know that my rudimentary enhanced hearing implants have recorded every private conversation in this chamber since I arrived, including that charming exchange between the Vexarian and Zoltonian representatives about bypassing council regulations on neutronium mining. Klaxx's scales paled to an alarmed white as several council members turned accusatory eyes in his direction. Sir, Luna whispered desperately, this is a diplomatic incident in progress. No, Luna, Jack replied with a wolfish grin. This is just honesty, and we're just getting started. High Counselor Thune rose to his full 12-foot height, mandibles clicking rapidly in the interstellar equivalent of a nervous cough. Ambassador Reynolds, this behavior is most irregular. Perhaps we should call a recess too. With respect, High Counselor, Jack interrupted. I think it's time for a little honesty in these chambers. Ambassador Klaxx has been playing a game and I'm simply changing the rules. Jack reached into his pocket and pulled out what appeared to be an ordinary stylus. With a flick of his wrist, it expanded into a holographic interface that hovered before him. Luna, Initiate operation. We were just being nice. The AI's hologram gave a resigned sigh. Initiating, sir, though I must register my formal protest. Duly noted and completely ignored, Jack replied with a grin that made several council members shift uncomfortably in their seats. The chamber's lights flickered momentarily. Around the room, the personal devices of various representatives chimed simultaneously. Even Klaxx's elaborate headdress, which apparently contained hidden tech, emitted a soft beep. "What is happening?" demanded a panicked representative from the third ring. "Just a small demonstration," Jack said casually. "Luna has temporarily integrated with the council's systems. Nothing to worry about. She's very polite, even when I'm not." "This is outrageous." Klaxx's scales had turned a mottled red. "Infiltrating council systems is a direct violation of— Oh, we didn't infiltrate anything today." Jack cut him off. "That happened 6 months ago when we first received our invitation to join. Standard human protocol, never walk into a room without knowing all the exits." Another murmur rippled through the chamber. This one tinged with alarm. "Now about those primitive human defense capabilities," Jack continued. He tapped the holographic interface, and the galaxy map on the domed ceiling zoomed in to show the Vexarian home system. "Interesting configuration you have there. 7 planets, 3 asteroid belts, and oh look, 17 unregistered military installations that violate at least 4 council treaties." Klaxx's scales had gone from red to a sickly gray. "How did you— Same way we know about the artificial structures buried beneath the surface of your third moon," Jack said. "The ones housing your illegal quantum displacement research. You see, Ambassador, humans have a funny trait: we look harmless until we're not." Jack tapped the interface again, and the ceiling display shifted to show a series of technical schematics. "For the Council's information, these are the actual specifications of Earth's defense fleet. Not the public documents we submitted, but what we actually have in orbit." The chamber erupted into chaos as representatives got their first glimpse of technology that clearly surpassed much of what the Council possessed. "Impossible," whispered someone nearby. "Their species only achieved FTL travel 40 years ago. That's the thing about being underestimated," Jack said, his voice cutting through the din. "It provides excellent cover for rapid advancement. While you all thought we were fumbling with rudimentaries tech, we were actually reverse engineering every piece of alien technology that's crashed on our planet over the last century." Luna's hologram expanded to display additional data. "Human technological development has followed an exponential curve since first contact, with particular acceleration in quantum computing, dark energy manipulation, and shield harmonics. We didn't share everything when we joined the Council," Jack admitted. "Call it a human quirk. We like to keep an ace up our sleeve. Or in this case, an entire deck." High Councilor Thune's compound eyes were rapidly shifting between Jack and the displayed schematics. "Ambassador Reynolds, if these specifications are accurate, Earth's technological level would place it in the second ring, not the outer one." "We're aware," Jack said with a shrug. "We were fine with the Council underestimating us. It gave us time to observe, learn your customs, understand the political landscape. Humans are good at adapting." He turned back to Klaxx, whose scales had now settled into a defeated pale blue. "As for your claim to the Sol system, here's what's going to happen. You're going to withdraw it right now, and we're going to pretend this embarrassing diplomatic incident never occurred. And if I refuse—" Klaxx's voice lacked its earlier confidence. Jack smiled. It wasn't a diplomatic smile. "Then Luna will be forced to release the data packet she's assembled on Vexarian treaty violations to all Council members. I believe the term is mutually assured destruction, though in this case it's just your destruction." The holographic interface in Jack's hand chimed. "Incoming transmission from Earth Command, sir," Luna announced. "Put it through." The ceiling display shifted to show Admiral Chen of Earth's Defense Fleet. "Ambassador Reynolds, sensors indicate you've activated the contingency protocols. Is Earth under threat?" Jack glanced pointedly at Klaxx. "No, Admiral, just a small misunderstanding about territorial rights." Ambassador Klaxx was about to withdraw the Vexarian claim to our system. With all eyes on him, Klaxx's scales shifted through several colors before settling on a subdued green. "The Vexarian Imperium withdraws its claim. Our archives may have been mistranslated." "Excellent," Jack said. "Admiral, stand down the fleet." "False alarm." "Understood, Ambassador." Chen out. The display returned to its normal galactic map. Jack turned to face the entire Council, his expression composed once more. I apologize for the dramatic display. Earth values its place in the galactic community and has no desire for conflict. We simply felt it was time to clarify our position. He walked back to his desk in the outer ring, straightened his jacket, and sat down. Now, I believe we were discussing mineral rights disputes. Earth would be happy to share our expertise in sustainable extraction methods. The council chamber remained silent for a long moment, every representative processing what they had just witnessed. Then, to everyone's surprise, High Counselor Thune began to laugh, a clicking, chittering sound that echoed through the chamber. In 3,000 years on this council, Thune said, mandibles quivering with amusement, I have never seen a more effective demonstration of diplomacy. The humans, it seems, have been holding back in more ways than one. Jack smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. We try to be polite, but it's always good to remember that politeness is a choice. The remainder of the council session proceeded with a noticeably different atmosphere. Representatives who had previously ignored Earth's outer ring position now stole curious glances at Jack. Conversations hushed when he walked by during the recess. Even the environmental controls seemed to adjust to a more human-friendly temperature. I believe you've made an impression, sir, Luna commented as Jack sipped a beverage that was trying very hard to be coffee, but tasted more like liquefied charcoal. That was the point, Jack replied, leaning against a viewport that overlooked the vast council spaceport. Sometimes you need to flip the table to reset the game. An interesting metaphor, though I'm not sure Earth Command would approve of your methods. Jack grinned. Earth Command knew exactly who they were sending. Why do you think Admiral Chen responded so quickly to our signal? Luna's hologram tilted her head thoughtfully. The entire incident was premeditated. Let's call it a contingency plan. We needed to establish our position quickly, and Ambassador Klaxx provided the perfect opportunity. Jack finished his not coffee with a grimace. We've been watching the Vexarians for years. Their claim to Sol was predicted by our strategic analysis team with 87% probability. An operation we were just being nice. One of several prepared responses, though I admit, I didn't expect to use it quite this dramatically. As they returned to the chamber for the final session, Jack noticed Ambassador Mira Tazen, of the Aldebaranian Conclave, waiting by the entrance. Her crystalline features shimmered in the light as she approached. Ambassador Reynolds, she said, her voice melodic. The Aldebaranian Conclave would be honored if Earth would share its perspective on the Rigelian trade route dispute next session. Jack bowed respectfully. Earth would be delighted, Ambassador Tazen. As she glided away, Luna's hologram flickered with amusement. Second ring representatives don't usually consult with the outer ring. I believe we've been unofficially promoted, Jack said with a wink. The final session concluded without further incident. As representatives filed out of the chamber, Jack found himself approached by High Counselor Thune. Ambassador Reynolds, Thune said, mandibles clicking softly. The council has existed for many millennia. In that time we have seen empires rise and fall, species ascend and fade. Yet rarely have we been so effectively surprised. Jack bowed. Earth appreciates the council's understanding of our unique position. I would not call it understanding yet, Thune replied, but certainly interest. Your species has a reputation for being extraordinarily polite. Now we see that beneath that politeness lies complexity. Humans contain multitudes. High Counselor. Thune's compound eyes studied Jack for a moment. Indeed, the Council will be watching Earth's development with great interest. Your assigned position in the outer ring will be reconsidered. After Thune departed, Jack spotted Klaxx slinking toward the exit, scales a subdued blue-gray. The Vexarian ambassador flinched visibly when Jack called his name. A moment, Ambassador Klaxx, Jack said, approaching with a friendly smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. I wanted to thank you. Klaxx's scales rippled with confusion. Thank me for the opportunity to clarify Earth's position. It would have taken months of procedural debates otherwise. The Vexarian's head tilted slightly. You wanted me to challenge your claim to Sol. Jack's smile widened. Let's just say Earth intelligence had a fairly comprehensive profile on you. Your predictable aggression saved us considerable time. Klaxx's scales darkened to an indignant purple. This was a setup, more of a calculated risk, Jack replied. One that paid off beautifully. Later that evening, in the Council's diplomatic lounge, a space designed to accommodate 32 different species definitions of relaxation. Jack sat nursing a drink that was almost, but not quite entirely unlike whiskey. Luna's hologram appeared beside him. Earth Command sends their congratulations, sir, and a request for a full report on the Council's reaction to your performance. Tell them it exceeded expectations, Jack said, taking a sip of his drink. The Vexarians are neutralized. At least 3 second ring powers are seeking alliances, and we've been fast-tracked for technological exchange programs. And your polite mode, sir, will it be re-engaged for future sessions? Jack laughed. Of course, that's the beauty of it, Luna. Humans are at our most dangerous when we're being polite, because that means we're choosing to be, and what can be chosen can be unchosen. Across the lounge, a group of council representatives watched the human ambassador with newfound respect and just a hint of apprehension. They seem so harmless when they're being polite, observed the cactus-like being. Yes, agreed its gelatinous friend. But I for one will remember what happens when that politeness is disengaged. Jack caught their gaze and raised his glass in a friendly toast. His smile was warm, diplomatic, and perfectly polite. But now everyone in the room understood exactly what that politeness concealed. Sometimes, the most terrifying thing in the galaxy is a polite human who decides to stop being polite.